how do you differentiate between good AI companies versus bad AI companies?
It's a good question, and that's also not just a million or billion, it's a $1 trillion question.
In this episode of Doers Goes to India, we are joined by Manish Dai, one of India's most versatile and future-ready tech leaders. From leading Twitter India to building and founding Fenoi.ai, to now investing in AI-first startup as a general partner at BAT VC. Along with him, we have Bhupendra Khanal, ex-founder of Simplify360, the AI-powered customer engagement platform that helps brand unify digital conversion in one place.
Anything I would say today will probably become wrong or irrelevant in less than 3 months.
If you are a founder or a creator, you will get investor-level clarity on which company will survive the AI bubble and know how single shift in algorithm can erase everything that you have built unless you understand the power of platform.
They can change the algorithm and next day your product will nowhere to be seen.
We did not see Twitter as a threat when we started. When it started to grow, then we started to feel we are too dependent on Twitter.
If we are into AI, this breaks down the layer of AI, proprietary data, large language model, UI UX, and why large language model are becoming a commodity.
At some point, the LLMs will become a commodity because almost everyone will get to a point where incremental improvement won't be much.
So how do NVIDIA keep selling so much of chips?
They're selling the new idea. Now they're selling the idea of sovereign AI.
Exactly.
And here's something most people don't know. The former head of Twitter India went to school in Nepal and can speak Nepali.
म 13 वर्षसम्म नेपालमा बसेको मेरो प्राइमरी स्कुलिङ मिडल स्कुलिङ
Crazy.
अलिअलि आउँछ धेरै राम्रो आउँदैन.
How does it feel to sell something that you have built and to move on? Please tell me about
I think you should take this question, Bhupendra. Yeah, I think.
how does it feel to
Yeah, let
analyze
him answer first. I'll go next.
This episode is strengthened by Hama Steel and insured by Himalayan Everest Insurance. Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another podcast of our Bangalore series. I am so excited to host this podcast because I have two amazing people. One person is quite familiar to you by now, and we have Manish Dai, Bhupendra and Manish Dai, and then so I know this is going to be a crazy ass podcast. So welcome both of you guys.
Thank you.
I think let's go ahead with a
Thank
little
you.
bit of introduction of Manish Dai so that people can relate. So Manish Dai is currently he's a general partner at BAT VC. It's a investment company and
It's a venture capital fund.
venture capital fund, and
Yeah.
mostly quite aggressive in investing in AI first companies.
Yes.
And Howard Fellow, and also ex head of Twitter India.
Yes, that's correct.
So once again, Dai, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. My pleasure. I'm very happy to be here with you and with Bhuvan as well.
Yeah, and I think Bhuvan Dai ko bare mein I think we have already had enough introduction, but today I think we will have him to wear his hat as a Simplify360 founder of the past.
Sure.
We talked about the same thing half an hour ago about how internet is all about 3 C's: content, code, and community. And you have been very active around it. So, with all this AI thing going around, how do you see the dynamics of content, social media, and creator?
Yeah, it's a very good question because as we look at the way things are, everything is evolving very fast, right? So, I mean, whatever I say now would probably become redundant in 3 months or even faster than that. But one thing is for sure that AI is fundamentally rewiring how things happen, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. In the past, when you had to produce a product like a technical product, it would take you a long time to write a code, or even if you have to do a content, it would take you a lot of effort to put a production team together. You had to sort of have the pre-production schedule, get the footage, then do post-production. AI sort of gives you that execution muscle to do things very quickly, and that is going to change the fundamental way in which things will happen. So that would mean that many things will condense and collapse. Also, new business model will emerge as to where is the value being created. The work process will get rewired. So a lot of fundamental changes are in the offing, I would say, and I think we can go into more specifics as we go into the discussion. But things are changing very fast. That's what I can say.
Mm. And what do you think? I mean, like challenges or an opportunity for a brand, and maybe Bhupendra, I can also add from how you are leveraging social media for Doxy, and how was the scene back then when you were leading Simplify360?
It is actually very interesting, So So when we started Simplify, right, and it was not very long time ago also, it's just about 15, 16 years back, right, when me and my friends came together and started, we actually thought Facebook and Twitter were marketing platforms, right, where people are coming and chatting, and there is a way to market, right? But then they evolved to so much, it became completely a part of our life, where our life is incomplete without them, right? In next 6-7 years, right? And it's so funny that in 2009, when we started leveraging Twitter in marketing our idea that we had of a analytics platform that time, right? So I was actually the most followed guy in Twitter in 2009, and when
Oh, wow.
Priyanka
Okay.
Chopra took over,
Yeah.
right? And you can see how the penetration in the celebrity space was not there, right? But now, like, if I just come forward like 2-3 years, the situation completely changed, right? Everybody's following celebrities, things have gone to a next level, and a lot of things evolved, right? And with that, every couple of years, new thing kept coming, right? So when we started Simply360 in 2009, it was technically an AI platform. We used to do a lot of use data mining thing, right? We used to get the Twitter power, like Power's entire data from Twitter, and then like from Facebook and other places, analyze it and give very intelligent offering to the companies, whether it is to solve customer support problem, right, or for companies to solve the research problem, like whether people are liking my content or not liking my content, liking my brand, not liking my brand. A lot of those used to go, right? But we never called it AI, right? When I look back now, and when we sit among our friends, right, we're actually building our own LLMs, small, very niche, catered, right? That evolved in a way in next 10 years to a situation where now whole world, everything is moving towards AI, right? So I can see that. And for the Doxy that we I have today, right? Now, we at least every month we discuss at least once, how do we use this AI, right? We use in certain forms in reporting, that because that is my background, that is where my wife comes from in marketing. But we keep looking at, how do we leverage it more. So the thing that has come is massive. Like, I can see a tremendous shift, and I think this can only go beyond from here.
So around AI, I mean, like there's a lot of fad also, a lot of rappers coming up, and then every day there are new AI
Yeah.
startups
Yeah.
coming up,
Yeah.
and then you also see AI companies
Yeah.
shutting it down.
Yeah.
And as an investor and somebody who has such a strong grip around content and social media platform, how do you differentiate between good AI companies versus bad AI companies?
Yeah. So I think it's a good question. And that's also not just a million or a billion, it's a $1 trillion question. Because almost everyone has now put a .ai behind their name and have gotten the domain, and suddenly they are in the business of AI. So what you have to do is to look at, where is the true innovation happening, right? If it's just a simple wrapper over an LLM, I mean, it will not stand the test of time, because either those, platform companies or LLM companies will sort of build something of their own, or you will get replaced by someone else who does a better job in, user interface. What you have to look for is companies that have a true customer insight, and they are able to go deep in a vertical or a problem. For example, I'll give you an example, right? For example, let's say a healthcare company trying to get into AI. So clearly, you have the database and knowledge about what are the different medical problems and what are the ways to solve it. If you simply put a wrapper and say, okay, you can have a chat with this and get a first degree of advice from so-called AI doctor, that company will not last long, because anyone else can do that, right? You can simply put a simple wrapper on top of it. But if you have a deeper insight about, a specific set of problem, how do you manage the entire patient flow? What's going in their mind? How do you then get them to a doctor? How do you then carry that whole journey together? So as you go deeper into customer flows, and as you get deeper into what is the true customer need, and you build deep vertical insights about that space, those companies are less replaceable, because a horizontal LLM can only do so much, but it can't get into a very specific vertical, because you need original customer insight. And you also, over time, as you start attracting the right kind of patient population in that example, you will also have unique proprietary data that you can feed back to their model and make the model smarter and sharper around that specific problem. Like if, for example, you are giving advice about, say oncology or cancer, then if you have a lot of cancer patients coming to your portal and giving you data, you also become smarter. And that is unique proprietary data that you have. Plus, you also manage their workflow much better. So you start building moat around that, right? So that's where I think you can say the so-called good, or I would say durable AI companies will be. But we also have to see how the whole space evolves, because many things are up for grabs, right? And the pace of change is relentless. I mean, I am in this space, so I can tell you that anything I would say today will probably become wrong or irrelevant in less than 3 months. So, have that with a pinch of salt. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Has there been any point in time in your career where you have missed an opportunity of investing in a good AI companies, or you have invested in a company which you thought was great but then came out as a fad?
Yeah, I think I can give you an example of the latter, because I have made many mistakes in terms of picking. Of course, you make mistakes and you make good bets, and I think one good bet takes you very far, and I think it covers up the mistakes you made. So we invested in one company which was actually helping coders review their code using AI, right? And we thought that that will really cut down the code preparation time, because the coders can use that to review their code. But little bit did we know that, GitHub, which is the largest repository of like all the coders use that, it had introduced a feature that does that for them. So in one click, it became redundant in a way, right? So you have to watch out for that, because before the company could build that moat that I gave and go deeper with the customer problem around code review, a much bigger, better player chose to focus on that aspect and became much better. So therefore, that investment was not a great investment. So therefore, when you take an early bet, that's the name of the game in an early stage investing, that, you make 10 investments, 3 will be utter failure, 3 or 4 will be average, above average, and the top 2 or 3, which will be like, I'd give you a 10x return, and that will make up the portfolio and give you the right kind of IRR. So that's the name of the game. But to your question, yes, multiple failures. At the same time, we also made some good bets as well. So overall, quite happy with where we are.
A follow-up question to both of you. Let me build a context first. So I was looking at a subscription charge of Perplexity, right?
Yeah.
It's $20 a month.
Yes.
The cost for ChatGPT Pro is $20 a month.
Yeah.
While I understand, I think the majority of the revenue is being made where the distance between a consumer and a product is less.
Yeah.
I mean, like, whoever decreases the distance between a consumer and a software, that's where they make most of the money.
Yeah.
Now, it does not really make sense for me if the Perplexity use third-party large language model and build something on top of it and provide it on the same cost. Whereas, so it's a $20 for Perplexity, $20 for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So don't you think tomorrow OpenAI might introduce one agent which does a similar thing? So maybe tomorrow the existence of Perplexity might put on a question, right? So this is one context. The other context would be, since building, you mentioned how Simplify 360 was all about Twitter, using Twitter analytics. Have you never, so this question to you as an investor, this question to you as somebody who has built product, did you never thought maybe if my product is simply based on one particular platform, what if tomorrow Twitter can come up with its own or a sister company or a plugin or whatever you name it that does the same work? So a lot of hard work might go into a waste. Am I making sense?
Yeah, making sense. See, that is always a risk, right? I mean, in business, or in the nature of these companies they want to go towards where the biggest power is, right? So how can they get closer to customer, as you rightly said? And they will try to build moat around that, right? Because that's where the revenues will come from. So wherever they see that power is, they will go towards that. And the way the technology ecosystem is evolving, the boundaries are sort of, getting, I would say, murky. The water is very muddy. Everyone's playing in the same water. So to your question, yes, can OpenAI build a kind of a interface which is like a Perplexity and take it out of business? Yes, they can do that. Will they do that? Depends. If they see Perplexity as a threat, they can actually stop collaborating with Perplexity, because today Perplexity is an aggregation layer on top of many LLMs. Like, if you use Perplexity, you can choose which LLM will go into it. You can choose Claude, you can choose OpenAI, you can use something else, DeepSeek, right? Now, you might ask, why are the other companies collaborating with Perplexity? They are collaborating because they get distribution via Perplexity. Perplexity is giving them distribution of unique users that would not have tried them. At the same time, they are not threatening their business right away. But at some point, that equation can change, right? I'll give you a classic case, right? To your question about this platform versus a specific player, right? If you look at the Facebook days, Zynga was a very big mobile game player. Their entire revenue came from Facebook, and Facebook and Zynga were together, and also Farmville. Farmville was another player, right? So it was a symbiotic relationship because Farmville gave a lot of engagement to Facebook. Facebook saw it as another way to,
Get more engagement.
grow user base, and Farmville came to Facebook because Facebook gave it distribution. But over time, that equation changed, right? So that equation can always change between a platform and a specific player, right?
So what do you think? Is the distribution the key?
See, different things play at different time, right? When you are looking to get market share, you need distribution, right? So that's one part of the game. But once you have distribution, you want customer engagement, and you want to have that deep relationship with the customer, where the distributor becomes less important to you, because once you have that direct intimacy with the customer, you may want to cut out a distributor. So it's a question about at what stage of the game you are playing. Different players become important at different stage in the game.
So in pre-AI area, I mean, like, it would have really made sense on a notion that one company cannot do everything, right? But in a post-AI world, where, like, I was watching a documentary of OpenAI, how they are investing more than 500 billion over some supernova or some, I forgot the name of the data center they're investing, heavily investing on data center, meaning they need more revenue, meaning they need to build more use case. So it's so difficult to accept or acknowledge that going forward, because OpenAI would be needing more and more resources, more and more revenue, they would not be capturing into other verticals, making this.
They would, right? I mean, logically, yes. The question is not about can they. The question is about will they, and sort of their mindset and focus. Ultimately, it's about you win the game where you focus, right? If you think about it, Google could have focused on AI and could have built something like what OpenAI did, right? But they never focused on it. They had other things going on. And there's a classic discussion, classic book by George Christensen, I think, by Innovator's Dilemma, which talks about the fact that incumbents or players who have a strong market share in some game, they tend to ignore the peripheral verticals until they become big enough, right? And that's a classic case. I mean, in my mind, OpenAI can do it, but will they focus on it? It remains to be seen. I mean, so yeah, it's a good discussion.
So
so in this, right, this is the way that I see, right? The first thing is, when I started Simplify, Twitter was already 2 years, right? So they were big, they had made something interesting, right? And when we started, we were a small company, right? We started, we saw some use case which is required. The Indian startups needed it, Indian marketers needed it, right? So we built something. First is, we did not see Twitter as a threat when we started. When it started to grow, then we started to feel we are too dependent on Twitter, right? So then we started integrating with Facebook and LinkedIn, and we also wrote scrappers to bring in blogs in, news in, right? We kept on increasing the width of the platform so that if something happens with one, we have our business keeps running on something else, right? And also in social media space, what happens is every few years a new social media will come. So the analytics company like Simplify, even today, they're very, very relevant, right? We took an exit, but somebody else is running it, and it's relevant because new platforms came, right? And they still integrate, and new use cases come, which Twitter alone or Facebook alone wouldn't do and can't do that, right? So that is part one, right? Now, part two, what I've also learned is you have to start somewhere, right? And Twitter also started somewhere, and they will go to their near verticals and they will do something more. And you as a startup also, you also think that, right? So it's a natural progression for both the companies to not focus so much on risk, right? Until it comes to a point, that's a breaking point, right? Sometimes it comes to a breaking point, right? And then, but those are very rare in business.
Yeah, that's a very good insight. I think like what you're saying, like how do you diversify the risk and play your game while sort of creating moats around it? And I think the nature of business is that it'll keep evolving. So I think if you keep your ears and eyes open and you realize that your core business is in risk, then of course you'll have to then think very hard. So,
yeah, exactly. And the other thing that I have seen in this this business, right? In whatever you do in life, right? In any business you get into, you start somewhere and you keep building bigger and bigger in some areas where you focus and where you have your inherent strength in, right? And somebody else which is your partner is also doing it. And as a war game player, I can tell you, right, the biggest threat in war games is always from the allies, because enemies, it. These are your enemies.
That's a very profound statement to make, right?
It is because I've played a lot of games,
Yeah, I think
and
the more I think about it,
yeah,
identified enemies are predictable.
yes, because you are always looking at them,
Yeah.
right? But when you are building it, you don't take care of the risk that comes with your allies, right? And you can see now, right? The world is when after Mr. Trump did it. I think there is more panic in Europe and Canada than in some other countries like China or Iran, right? And it is for natural reasons. And the middle countries will have, I think, the middle disturbance, right?
No, I think that's a very good insight. I think it applies to technology companies as well, right? I mean, like if you think about it, it's a very evolving situation for everyone, right? So everyone's sort of watching out, and I think known players are known to everyone, but people they are relying on and they were allies will probably they're in for a shock. In fact, interesting combinations are emerging, right? I mean, who would have thought that Nvidia would invest in Intel, right? They were like, or AMD, right? I mean, like, so I think it's playing out very interestingly because the pace of change is relentless. Also, the game is also evolving. So people are also trying to hedge their bets. So I think we'll see interesting combinations emerge.
Okay, let me ask a very hypothetical question. If we have to, I was listening to this podcast of Satya Nadella, and he said the future of SaaS company is changing, and it is going to be proprietary data, good nice UI, and large language model. Now, if we have to, like, let's say the whole system is 100%. If we have to divide it into proprietary data would also be distribution, because obviously you get proprietary data because you have a direct access with the user. Then there is a UI where user communicate with the engine. The engine is large language model. Now, if we have to divide it into percentage, what percentage would you give to each layer depending on its weight?
Yeah. See, I mean, again, it's my assessment. I think at some point the LLMs will become a commodity because almost everyone will get to a point where incremental improvement won't be much, right? It's like today, I mean, if you're a telecom company, how much more you can innovate, right? I mean, you've come to a point where you have the best connection, best connectivity. So LLMs will hit a kind of a roadblock there, right? The value will, of course, come from proprietary data because the better data you have, the better insights you can generate, you can have a better training model. And you can also use that data to also do a better inferencing because the value will start shifting from learning to inferencing also, right? And UI UX is important because that gets you closer to customer. If you are a customer or the user, you will go to a player where you get the relevant answer in a way that makes sense to you, right? So gradually, as one of the LLMs start commoditizing, the value will start shifting towards the customer layer even more, and also towards the kind of the proprietary data they have, right? And the question to think about is that when you think about customer interface, I'm not thinking about just a clean UI and sort of the website or a mobile interface. When I say customer interface, I mean like, do they deeply understand you as a customer and they are able to give you what you need even before you have asked for it? Like, it has to be a very intuitive understanding of the customer need and someone who understands the customer journey in terms of their problem and being able to provide a solution that they feel truly satisfied about. So when I say customer interface, I'm talking about deep understanding and deep moat on that vertical, right? That's when you'll have a game. If you just put a nice, UI UX sticker on top of an LLM, that game probably will work out right now in the next quarter or a year. But I think after a year, everyone will get wise about it.
So no, you don't really want to give a specific percentage to each of these layers?
So percentage, I mean, it's tough to guess, but I would say that like proprietary data and UI UX, I think I will give more to the customer interface part of it a bit more because that is where the people who have power is the customer. The customer is the one who is using it and paying money for it. So I think if I were to put a guess, like maybe 40% to the customer interface, another 30%, 40%, another to proprietary data. And I think LLM would be much smaller, I would say 20% or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take this slightly differently. Okay,
please.
Because I come more from a B2B and serving the enterprise as a service provider, right, from Simplify. So I'll give you one very amazing example. Okay, so me and my CTO, we go to a customer presentation where our partner who was using Simplify 60 to serve that customer, right? So they were doing this large presentation on using a social media analytics platform for multiple use cases from communication to customer support to research to everything, right? And we're implementing, and this is one of the largest conglomerate of India, right? We go there, and I just learned that that deal was 300 crores in on that day.
Wow.
Okay.
Hmm.
And we were getting 3 crores, and we're so happy
Yeah.
as a platform,
Hmm.
right? And that day, one learning came to me is, we talk about uh, this platforms taking all the money, right? And all that is so misguided, because use cases wise, there are a lot of things that goes beyond it, like, providing people, right? Doing the actual work, dirty work, of course, solving the customer support, right? Because all these platforms will only do something, right? They will just connect, they will give you a platform to use, right? But there is a lot of value addition it goes, because marketing team would need separate, right? Just to give you an example, right? So we had to give a different report to the CEO, then the CMO, and then the communication head would take a different report, right? Even though they are very closely related functions. Now just imagine a customer support guy, right? And then the solving actual customer issues. So what I have always seen is this is going to be a very complex game. Okay. So when people say, AI company will come and they will take everything, right? I feel, we are just oversimplifying things, right? Obviously, these companies will be very big, because they will spread so much in terms of their coverage, that even small money they collect from everywhere, right? And then that revenue becomes significantly big. But serving each customer need, right, it requires a completely different thing, right? Like Manish Dai was just mentioning earlier, right? So there is a power where Apple has it as a platform. There is a power as Vodafone or Airtel has as a platform. They are also platforms, right? Communication platforms. These are like interface, technical interface. Then there are apps, which is like specific to Flipkart or something, right? These are all have different things, and then one going and covering the other, however big they are, right? That is a very far-fetched thing. There are hundreds of industries, there are hundreds of use cases, right? So that is one part that I feel is always going to remain, how much ever sophistication the platforms bring, right? And specific to, if I just take a simplistic question, right, a very powerful platform versus a good UI in the use case, right? I think UI and use case, I think will win. At the end of the day, people have to use. See, we are not the entries in Excel sheet, right? The end users are people.
And obviously, it's like every layer would want to uh, like wider their revenue, and then they would always try to take away a market share of the other vertical. But it's so fun. I don't know if it's funny or it's strange, because it's been 2 to 3 years that AI has taken really over, and now from that moment where you could type anything and get an answer, we're talking about now large language would be a commodity. So just taking a critical viewpoint, because because it's very expensive to build an large language model, are we coming from a bias angle that it will be a commodity, and then a lot of innovation will be on top of it? Because as of now, like I remember one of the questions asked to Sam Altman. He was in India, and he said, "Don't invest on, don't even bother to invest on large language model." And now, within a span of 2 years, we are telling that large language model could be a commodity anytime soon.
The reason for that is so much has already been invested. If you think about it, there are already 4 or 5 very good choices, right? You have OpenAI, you have Anthropic Claude, you have Google Gemini, and then there are quite a few other ones as well, smaller ones, right? And of course, in my view, see, each of them are racing to get better and better, right? And they're releasing new models. But the incremental delta from a customer perceptible standpoint, whether you are on the ChatGPT the 5 version or the 4 version, is for an everyday user is not much of a difference, right? For if you're a slightly more deeper technical user, maybe you'll find some difference. So my view would be, if you create one more, is it going to be economically viable from the perspective that how much $1 billion you have to spend to get that incremental delta over what is existing, number one? And then would there be enough perceptible use cases that will really benefit from that delta that will generate, right? So I come back to telecom example, right? For example, what is the point of investing in another telecom network now? You might get slightly better latency, you can get a better speed, you can get a better coverage, but then it doesn't justify the whole investment of investing in a new telecom company, right? So either if you have something that pushes that boundary much better, you come with a new set of algorithm, you come with a new kind of insight, and that insight will increasingly be on the inference side, right? I mean, so in AI, you have to differentiate between learning and inference, right? So when you build a LLM, you get all the information, all the data, crunch it, and sort of build those intelligence to process it and all of that. So that happens before it happens, right? But when the customer is using it, you or me are querying. There is bigger value now in understanding what is your intent. So when Bhupendra is trying to find an answer on any kind of LLM, someone who understands his intent better and is able to infer better for him, he will move towards that irrespective of what LLM is being used. So the value will start moving away from learning side to the inference side, right? And also, once you have 3 or 5 very established, I missed the Facebook also has a LLaMA, right? Yeah. So there are 4 big ones already.
But they're open sourcing it.
So they're open sourcing it, so you have access to that and you can build something very specific on top of it, right? So the question is, if you were to build a 5th one, yes, you can build one, right? I think typically what other countries are doing, typically the view they are taking is take the open source LLaMA and then feed it with my proprietary data and make it better. So that's a more cost efficient way, and those things will happen a lot. I'm not saying that is commodity, because by getting an open source model, you are getting all the knowledge and understanding so far, and then you add your own proprietary data on top of it. Like, for example, someone in India might say, okay, I'll take the Meta's LLaMA and I will feed with all the indigenous content of, say, India or Nepal or South Asia, and I'll produce something that is more relevant to my thing. So that might be an incremental value they are adding. So there is value for that, and I think that is not going to be a commodity for at least some time, right? And then the other area of investment would be to focus on the inference side, right? Inference side in terms of understanding customer intent. So in my mind, that is how the value equation is changing and shifting, because last 2 years, huge investment has been made, right? If you think about November 22, the world was taken by surprise by looking at ChatGPT that you can talk in a human way and get answer. After that, Claude came. After that, Gemini came. And after that, Facebook also came. And also, I forgot Grok. Elon Musk Grok as well is there, right? Yes. So you already have so many choices, right? So I am already, as a end customer, I only have affiliation with 2 or max 3. I don't need like 5 different models. So I'm already done, right, as a user. But yes, sophisticated user might want to look for a delta, but those are small populations. So the value equation will not make sense to like invest tens of billions of dollars to produce something else. Yes, you want to improve something and feed it with proprietary data and get to a specific use case. Those are the ones where the value will be created now.
Let me take from a very different angle. Okay. You want to first ask?
Add something.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah. So now we're talking a lot about proprietary data, right? Yeah. So my question to you is, obviously, even when we compare to proprietary data, eventually they will come to a point we'll talk about depth of proprietary data, how deeper understanding that you have, right? So on the 3 layers I talked about, proprietary data, UI, and large language model. Let's club the UI and proprietary data in one bundle, because the better the proprietary data that you have, the better you'll be able to personalize.
The better customer interface and personalization you do. Yeah.
Yes. So now, for one company to own a deeper proprietary data of a larger mass versus niche companies owning more deeper proprietary data of one niche company. So in these 2 examples, what do you see winning? I mean,
yeah. So what will happen is that larger use cases, large companies will start trying to build a platform around it. And then for specific niche use cases, you'll see niche players coming in. I'll give you an example from the internet world, right? You would assume that Google was they indexed the entire internet and they were the very early players. They were large players. They could have built every possible app. They could have built an Uber. They could have built a WhatsApp. They could have built a Flipkart or Amazon, but they could not. Because they could not build Amazon, because Amazon requires very specific customer purchase intent and the whole logistics understanding and all of that, right? So they had to seed that territory to Amazon. Similarly, Google could not do social media, because you have to deeply understand the customer need when it wants to connect with another human being. You have to be able to map the understanding of the social connection. And Facebook came in that domain. It started building something and it became big player, right? So that is what will happen in AI as well, right? The platform companies will try to capture everything, but there'll be these players who will sort of come out, who will focus on one problem, they will do it so well that they will become sort of the big leader. And if that is appreciated by the customer and used again and again, they will also start gaining power.
So the future is niche.
So the way I'll answer is that for niche use cases, you will have to go to niche player, right? But for some horizontal play, some bigger companies can still do it. I'll give another example, right? The location data and maps. Google was able to capture the Google Maps. That was not originally in their intent, but they were so good at it because they had access to an operating system called Android, which they were very prescient in acquiring, and then they had access to the entire location data. They could map it and come with Google Maps. So today, Google Maps is the leader. So it became a platform play now, right? So in some cases, yes, these companies can pick those places, and if they have enough large mass of people and they're able to produce value, they will be able to do it. But for niche places, either they will not have the focus or they will not have the customer insight to go as deep as a niche player can do. For example, they could not do e-commerce very well, right? And Google also tried, by the way, social media, Google Plus.
Yeah.
They failed miserably, right? So just because you're a large player and a platform player, that doesn't guarantee success. It does give you a head start, but a new player can come and easily dislodge you.
But this logic does not really apply for a Chinese tech, right? Like we can take an example of WeChat. So whatever you say, social media, e-commerce, ride sharing, search engine, like it has.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm not an expert on China, but I'll tell you one thing about China, that it's a protected market, and it is not subject to the same market dynamics, right? So if you get a state protection or you have some kind of other protection, you can get that scale, right? And in my mind, WeChat is a very great example where they got the scale and they were able to put everything and they became sort of the internet, because most people in China, they go into WeChat and they think like everything is there. So they sort of became the internet for that country. But there was at that point in time, it made sense. It was a very unique country, very unique regulations. It may or may not get repeated. So we have to like everything is changing so fast that, again, I go back to my caveat that what I'm commenting today, 3 months later, the world can change. So don't hold me to that either.
I'll make a statement and I'll go to Bhupendra Dai.
Yeah.
So I was reading this book called Read, Write, Own by
Yeah.
Chris Dixon.
Yeah.
And he came up with a quite nice insights. What he mentioned was, every time the world is going through a massive technological change and there are few companies owning the bigger pie of it, the other technology company will come up with something and they will make it free. For example, Google coming up with an Android and making it open source.
Yes.
Because they wanted to compete. They didn't want it to compete against Apple, but they didn't want Apple to be the monopoly, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, in terms of large language model, while OpenAI, Google, XAI was so, it's a closed large language model, right? Facebook came up and made it open source because it didn't want these other companies to take a monopoly. And such a nice dynamics where you are playing in a way that other companies does not take the whole pie, even if you don't want the piece of the pie.
Yeah.
But you don't want other companies to take the whole pie.
If you're a loser, right, you have nothing more to lose. So you might as well bring them down to the lowest common denominator, right? So it's a classic game theory game then, right? So it's less of a technology play. It's more like, okay, if I'm anyway losing in this game, what can I do so that I can take the power away from the winner? Is the classic game, right? I mean, that's what they are playing. The same happened with Jio, by the way, in India, right? I mean, Vodafone and Airtel were the top guys, and Jio came in, almost they gave connection free. And they incurred huge losses. But they got the entire market share, and once they captured the last mile, then they were able to gradually increase the price and also make money from the apps that they started giving. So it's a more of a strategy game than anything to do with technology. I think it applies in any other game as well. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'll bring two perspective where Manish Dai didn't bring. Okay, which obviously you talked about almost everything. Yeah. So I can see two big areas, right? Number one is we also need to see where this chip makers are going. Okay, like NVIDIA and AMD and all those guys, right? If 4 or 5 companies own everything, whole AI, right? They have to justify their market cap every year, every quarter, right? So how do NVIDIA keep selling so much of chips? Right?
They're selling a new idea. Now they're selling the idea of sovereign AI. Every country
exactly. That is what is going to come.
Yeah.
Now AMD has already started to give just like you can plug into OpenAI and build up software in top of it. You can actually install a DeepSeek or a LLaMA in a server and only pay the use case.
Yes.
AMD already, I heard they have already had the service, right? So now, see, that is also going to be commoditized, right? Now, on the other side, when somebody spent $500 billion building OpenAI and somebody built a $6 million DeepSeek, the price of making that is also going to come down significantly as this becomes a commodity, right? So now the prices are coming down. You are having an opportunity to just use it and then pay as per your use case. You can install a large model and then just pay as you go, right? So there will be a lot of new companies who is trying to build using the proprietary data and make a lot of them, right? Plus the government factor, right? All the major companies, especially after this TikTok forceful acquisition from the US investors, right? I think all the major, at least top 25 companies of the world would go that path, try to build their own, and they already have LLaMA and DeepSeek, two options to install and start somewhere. They don't have to go from the scratch, right? And most of these governments, they are in a position to at least invest $100-200 million or at least $15 billion. There are a lot of those governments, right? I can also see at some point of time, right, when some very passionate person comes in some state of India, and then this regional LLMs start building in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. And I also heard few discussions when there were talks in some of my friends, right? Those are already on, right? So this is going to be there. So what do you think, Manish Dai?
No, I agree with you. I think the sovereign AI, I think it's become a bit of a geopolitical as well, right? Given the way the world is changing now. In fact, my view was like 10 years ago, technology companies were supranational. Like they would operate from everywhere, right? But increasingly, as they have become powerful, I think, Bhupendra, you only brought this point that when you become powerful, people who are in political power also want to make sure that it is aligned to their interest, right? So I can already see with TikTok happening that each country would want to control the whole AI thing, right? And the question is, where would they control? Do they control the chip stage, which is the infrastructure or the physical thing? Do they control the algorithm? Or do they control the data that goes into it, right? And I think in my mind, therefore, that is one part that will become very important now to look at. And sovereign AI and this whole discussion about that is becoming very, very big, including the controls on the chip export as well, which no one thought about that, the way it will happen. The other part is that while there are horizontal LLMs and also open source, you still have use cases and needs that are very local in different, like in this part of the world, like say states of India or also in Nepal, other places. It is not exactly solving your need. It is solving your use cases at a broad level. But if you have a very specific problem in that place, someone has to then innovate on top of it, saying, what do I supplement it with? Do I need to add my local data to make it more relevant to my audience? Do I need to have a better customer interface? For example, in many parts of the South Asia, right, people are not comfortable typing. Like, I don't see my driver, I don't see people in the villages typing into an LLM. They need a voice interface. Yes. So voice will be another interface that will come up, and people in the rural areas will completely leapfrog from not having any AI to having only voice AI. They will talk to them like a human being. So they will not even know that there's a chat interface, that we in the cities, we are now so used to a chat interface. And we think chat interface is the Gen AI. That's the way AI operates. But it is not necessarily that's the way it is operated, because with the latency going down, I can talk to an AI like I'm talking to you in this podcast.
Look how we are using Alexa. Look how we are using Google Home.
Yeah. So in my mind, the voice interface will probably become bigger than the chat interface, and that will completely change the game even differently. Because then you need voice samples, you need understanding about how people speak something, you need training around that. And also think about it this way, right? Imagine bilingual, trilingual AI in the sense that you speak in, say, Nepali, I speak in Hindi. And in real time, it is translating and talking to each other. And the data, like all the things are possible.
Already happening.
Yeah. So all the things are possible now, right? I mean, so all of that is, so we are just opening up to what are the possibilities right now.
And I think the other, so one would be texting, the other would be cameras, third would be voice, and I think the fourth would be spatial technology. I mean, like we already
You're forgetting a Neuralink, which is what, so you can insert a chip, exactly. You can think, and you'll get the answer. So Elon Musk is onto this, right? I mean, like there's a big discussion saying that we are probably the last generation of people where everything is biological as the God created it, because now in the next generation, they will have chips everywhere, right? I mean, so we will have chips in our wrist to measure our something and something here. So we might just think about it and then we'll get the AI answer.
Remember back in days, like if you guys remember or not, this series of movies called RoboCop, yeah. And we used to see Cyborg, where machines and human bodies being...
Yeah, so I mean, that's a possibility now, because there are already tests going on where, because ultimately when we speak something or when we type, we are converting our intent into some kind of a machine readable form, right? So if you bring that interface closer to your point of origination of intent, you become closer to your customer, because who's the customer? Customer is not your hand or your eyes.
It's the mind.
Customer is the mind, right? What you're thinking and what your intent. If you can understand the intent and you're the closest to the intent, you probably have the biggest power then.
And I think like our conversation is keep going in a direction of proprietary at the end of the day. Seems like data is the new gold, whatever they used to say. And there is the example how government make a control. For example, back in Nepal, and if you're running a financial institution, you can't store your data on cloud. Even if you do, it has to the data center has to be within the geography of Nepal. So I think government is already controlling
Yeah,
data.
that's true for India also.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So do you know? I think just last week, this Google created one of its largest data center outside the US in Visakhapatnam in India, and I'm sure there is something to do with data localization as well, right? I mean, clearly, I mean, of course, there are technical advantages of low latency and lower cost, or maybe, but also every sovereign country would want to ensure that their data is local. Europe is pretty strict on that one. Like if you look at the GDPRs and the rules around that, so that's another area of huge fight and contention between a truly global company and their presence in each specific country.
Let's go back to your career. I think you led Network 18 for 3 years.
Network 18 Digital, the digital business of Network 18.
Yeah. And then soon after that, you led Twitter India. So from running a legacy media, you jumped into a media platform. I don't know, should we even call
social
Twitter
media or whatever?
Social media, a platform. Let's not even call it a media, right? Let's label media as a creator who creates. So how does the transition happen? And because you went from east to west, you know what I mean?
A good question. So I think I can answer it at multiple levels, right? Of course, the companies are different, the cultures are different. So I won't comment on the company and the culture,
but more from technology perspective.
I'll talk about how these companies think and what do they provide, and what is their social contract with their customer, like who do they serve, right? So a company like Network 18 or any traditional publishing or media company, they are a classic publisher. When I say publisher, which means that they create content, they own content, and they disseminate content, right? And then their revenues are primarily ad driven, right? So they are in the content production business and content monetization business, right? But when you go to a social media company, they don't create content. They have user generated content, and they are not monetizing content. They are monetizing the engagement and attention, right? So that whole equation changes, right? Because the cost structures are different. In a traditional media company, your biggest cost is the cost of the content producer and the reporters and the people you have on the ground and your production crew and everyone else, right? And in a social media company, your cost is primarily your platform and hosting cost, because you are hosting millions and millions of users and you are trying to give them the right kind of content, right time with the lowest latency, right? So the nature of engagement is very different. Also, the social contract with their audience is different, right? When you're in a traditional media company, your implicit promise to a customer is that I will give you curated, relevant, authenticated news. Like if you are reading something on my platform, I stand by what is there. I have produced it. I have created it. I have decided for you that it is relevant to you, right?
And the audience can hold the platform accountable for.
Exactly. So there's a fake news or a wrong news. As a publishing house like a CNN or CNBC or Money Control, they are responsible for the authenticity and the accuracy of the content. But when you're on a social media platform like Twitter never claims that the content is mine. Twitter says that this is user-generated content. I am simply hosting it and I'm providing you a platform where you can access it. And my only promise to you is that I will democratize content creation and content consumption. And I will make sure that anyone can create content, anyone can host content. And then I will try to understand who you are and try to give you content which is relevant to you based on my algorithm. But of course, you can overrule me and see what else you want to see. And so that content is very different, because Twitter is never the arbiter of truth. Twitter will never say that what is on my platform is correct. It is the responsibility of the person who is posting. And if someone, and in countries like where there's freedom of expression, people can post whatever they want. And if they break any law, they are under an obligation to remove it if they have the right legal direction to do it. Like when I say legal direction, there has to be a competent authority telling them that, hey, this content has to go down. In some countries, it would be a court order. In some countries, it would be a ministry. It would be a law enforcement agency. Depends on which country they operate. But their job is not to vet the content. Their job is not to claim it is correct. Their job is to simply ensure that people who want to express themselves have a way to express. So the nature is so different, right? And people confuse the two. One is a platform which is bringing the consumer and creator together. The other is a publisher who is a purveyor of content, who is producing content and purveying it and giving it to people and standing by what they give, right? So that's a difference.
So coming from a brand perspective, in last 6 years of running Doxy, how have you been leveraging traditional media versus the social media?
Yeah, interestingly, whether we like it or not, when you are small, when you're starting up, right, you depend a lot on Twitter, Facebooks of the world, right? Because you can just go there, post, at least you can get few traction, you can spend smaller money and then do a smaller promotions, right? So I think the biggest innovation that Twitter, Facebook or any platform brought was not their platform, where they made the ads democratic, where people talk it very less, but that is what I have learned in last 10-15 years, right? Now suppose say today I have a budget of 5,000 rupee, right? How do I go and spend the 5,000 rupee now and advertise in Times of India? There is no way, even today, right? So what I feel is all these traditional houses, right, from MSN to a lot of those big companies, if they had made that, I think a lot of the agencies would be using that as a day-to-day tool, right? So it spread the content, but they are missing out on those money, right? So for me, if today I have to spend a smaller amount, I only have to go to a couple of places, especially Instagram and Facebook.
And you can spend as little as $1.
Yes, right. So I think that is a huge part. But as you keep growing up, right, then at some point of time you would bring okay, I want to reach out to a larger audience through a different model, where so Brute guys came to us and then they created a video on us, right? It gave us a very massive reach, or not only in India but in Europe and UK as well, right? Some of those things Twitter or Facebook would not do. It's only on me that how do I do it, right? But these media houses, they come and they create content, right? It helps them, it helps us, because they wanted to tell a good success story from India, right? And we wanted our story to be told outside, right? So there is a huge this cooperation that keeps going, right?
But do you think legacy media, maybe please feel free to add on to it because you have led the media company. Legacy media companies are losing their edge on this because now that, so I have this saying, I've also written it as one of my cover picture in LinkedIn, that every company has to act like a media company. So for example, today ABC Media, XYZ media company wants to create a content around Churpi or let's say milk. I think by any standard, Doxy has a higher leverage on creating much deeper content around Churpi than any other media company. So if I as an audience wants to understand the Churpi, the cycle of Churpi, anything around Churpi, I would rather consume content that you guys create because you have the credibility.
No, I'll tell you the difference. Like I'll support his point that yes, they can create it, but the credibility and the reach that comes from a media company like Brute, they would not get it. Like if it is their own content, they can push it. They'll have to have sizable budget. And plus, if it is coming from them, it will not have the same credibility as coming from a traditional, like a independent third-party media company. That's a difference. Like content creation is easy, but building that credibility and the distribution also takes some effort.
But I think the dynamics is if he's paying for that content, he would rather create himself and own the content through his distribution, right?
It's content ownership. Yeah. You want to finish?
Yep. Okay. So see, I'll just give our example. Right?
Yeah.
See, we don't want to own a lot of content.
So you don't really want to build a subscriber base of, you don't really want to 1 million.
That's not their business.
No, that's not our business.
Yeah, their business is to sell Churpi, right? Yeah, that's their business.
Yeah. For me, like, Brute Video came and Sneh went to UK and we were attending one of the largest pet shows in UK. Most of the European customers have seen that from somewhere, right? So that type of leverage, and then we just close 1 or 2 deals and then like it's done for us, right? So what I have seen is somewhere this owning a content also makes sense for some sections where YouTube channel, like we have a YouTube channel, we keep posting ads, right? We like to own that content, right? But technically for a company like Churpi, it doesn't Makes sense whether you own that content, I own that content, or Manish Dai own the content, right? As long as it is reaching some audience and I'm able to sell to the trade, either I'm going to convert a distributor or get a retailer to sell or a consumer to buy, right? So my point of view is completely different, and I think from a content ownership and distribution side, a much larger, broader perspective, Manish Dai can answer. But from my company angle, that is what I feel.
But taking a metaphorical example, for example, just like we talked about how NVIDIA wants to be a chip company, it's a full stack software company, and they want to occupy a much larger territory of this business, right? So similarly, on the same parallel thought, don't you want to own the distribution, the access to the customers, the touch base, the personalization, and also own the product? Because eventually, you would want to be more self-reliant, more independent, and want to control the narrative, right? Because tomorrow the brute or XYZ company might cover your competitors as well.
Absolutely, Anup. So see, you are talking from a media company point of view, right?
No, I'm talking from a
brand.
No. From a company which has to constantly increase its distribution because it wants to sell its product directly.
Yes. So now I'll tell this, right? What distribution means for me? It doesn't mean YouTube reach or a subscriber base. Distribution means more number of distributors, more number of retail outlets selling our product, right? More number of customers looking for us, right? And they buying it.
So you don't really care where you get it from.
So content is just a one part of it, right? Where we do a lot of different types of marketing. Content is one, like we do events and all that, right? So our focus is only, this month we have sold this much shoes, and then now how we keep on increasing month on month, number one. Number second, we also plan, we're setting up a large factory. Now how do I already bring a larger channel, right? And sometimes, it can also happen, right? Like we recently got selected as one of the sellers in Walmart. Okay, they did an audit and we passed, and we actually became the only company in the churpi industry to pass that, right? For next 1 year, I don't have this distribution problem. I know how much I produce, they can sell. Now my thing is, how fast can I build that factory? How fast can I improve on my supply chain? Because I also have the existing customers. I cannot leave them, right? So keep serving the existing customers, and then my Amazon is growing high. I have to grow there, right? So my thing is, frankly speaking, obviously Sneh as a CMO would think more about distribution of content and a lot of this, but for me as a CEO, I have not more than 10% focus on building content or owning content or distributing content.
So on that note, I'll say one thing and I'll move.
Yeah.
Mr. Beast owns a chocolate company called Feast, and it's already one of the biggest. It's only one of the bigger chocolate company than a lot of legacy chocolate company. I mean, like how it relates to distribution. But then you are right on your own end. Taking the same context to you, for example, ABC company, which owns 100,000 subscribers. I'm countering my own narrative.
Yeah.
Let's say ABC company owns 1 million subscribers on YouTube. But do they really own the audience? Because it feels like at times we all are building on a rented land. And now it's up to the platform tomorrow to change some algorithm, and you might not even get the same reach that you used to get yesterday. So it feels like even in terms of brand, in terms of legacy media company, now they are going to more towards OTT, standalone apps, because you don't really own the audience. You don't know their name. You don't know their email address. All you know is anonymous followers. And are you getting me?
You're absolutely correct. In fact, I have run Twitter, so I can tell you that people become so emotional about their Twitter handle, but Twitter can take that handle anytime they want, right? And if you think about it, when Elon acquired Twitter and turned it into X, he all the people who had blue tick, he took it away. Even Amitabh Bachchan had to beg for a blue tick, and he says, like, pay for it and I'll give it to you. And Amitabh Bachchan all his life thought that Amitabh Bachchan, that handle belongs to Amitabh Bachchan. And Twitter said, no, who are you? I don't even know you. Like, so buy it. Here's my $8 per month plan. If you pay for it, Amitabh Bachchan said, okay, I have to pay $8 now? So yes, of course. So even think about it this way, that you are absolutely correct, right? See, the moment you sign into a social media platform or any of the platform owned by someone else, you agree to a terms of service. It clearly says that here are my rules and regulations. So you are getting into someone else's territory and agreeing to their terms and conditions. So it is their property. So you have to be aware of that, right? So any kind of followership you build on YouTube or Instagram, basically the users belong to them. You're simply there and you're sort of, getting that benefit by being part of it. The only way you can own someone is that you have your own app, and then the agreement is between you and the customer. If the agreement is between you and the customer, then you own them. But if you don't have the direct agreement, if you go via intermediary, it's bringing the two together, and they will tax you either through money or through something else to make their business work, right? And that's their business model. I'm being fair to them as well. Like, otherwise, how would they exist?
So what should be a contingency plan for a typical media company?
So you should have multiple touch points. In fact, I go back to Bhupendra's point that, see, you have to have some proprietary channels. You have to have some borrowed channels, right? And I'll tell you the pros and cons of that. If you're small, you can't invest in your own channel. You have to get your word out, right? So you're using someone else's distribution, and because you have something unique and interesting, they also want you, because they also want interesting content for their audience. So there's a symbiotic relationship. So initially it does make sense, but as you become bigger and bigger, you also have to have your own proprietary channel. And this is not only the game with social media or content, even like in e-commerce, right? If you're a small player, you will first start selling on Amazon and Flipkart to test the market. But once you become big, you want to have your own website. And once you become even bigger, you want to have your own physical store, and you want to have your direct relationship with the customer, and that you want customer to know you directly. Because if you're selling on Amazon and Flipkart only, they can change the algorithm, and next day your product will nowhere to be seen, right? If they find that your product is a top selling product, the highest margin, and what they could do is that they can change the algorithm anytime. Plus, they can also build their own white label product to exactly show on top of your product at $1 lower.
And make you run ads on top of that.
Exactly. So my view is so it's not only the problem with social media, any kind of rented platform will do things which make sense for their economics. And by choosing to be there and by signing their terms of service, you have agreed to give them that power. So you can't also fault them. That is their business model. But for you, what you have to do is that you have to decide at what point in time I am big enough to afford my own proprietary channels, and you have to build those.
I think we keep coming back to the same center where everybody is racing towards owning the customer directly, owning the proprietary
That's
data.
where the power is. That's where the money is, right? So in any business or any kind of endeavor, right? You have to please your customer. You have to satisfy your customer. You have to deliver benefit to a customer, because that is why the business exists. So whosoever is closer to them, whosoever has a deeper relationship, they will have the power, they will be able to charge money, they will be able to make revenues, and they will be able to dislodge other people who are piggybacking on you because you own the relationship. You can cut them off whenever you want, right?
And also that is so great for the consumer, right? Because it's always the consumers on a better end making choice, because they will always be the most valuable entity on that whole ecosystem.
Generally true, unless there is a customer lock-in. Like, for example, if you're a customer and your data is locked into a platform, then even despite being a consumer, you can't move out. And that's what, when you say walled garden approach, right? In content companies, social media companies, you try to get as much of customer profile with you that if they choose to leave you, they will have to start from scratch. So that's the way the platform companies would lock you as a customer as well.
And I can second that, because I've been a long time user of ChatGPT, and
so now if you move to Claude, your entire history of interaction goes away.
Exactly.
So now they have locked you in, unless they provide you a button saying download my chat history, and Claude provides you a upload option saying upload your ChatGPT history, and I will seamlessly operate. But they will not do that unless required by the law.
Yeah, unless there is intervention by the government.
That is where I was thinking when you were mentioning, right? See, earlier number portability was not there.
Yes.
Right? Your number was a
Exactly.
proprietary of Airtel or Vodafone or whichever you use, right? But most of the governments in the world came and said, no, you have to make it portable.
Yes.
Right? That gave the power back to the consumer, right?
Yes.
I think the government.
That's a great point.
Yeah. All the whole world, right? I think this responsible politicians of the world, right, are already thinking, I think everywhere in the world, how do we empower the customers back, right? And some countries, I think it will happen faster. They will create a use case for the world, right? And then the other countries will follow this suit. But this is, I think we are just at a cusp where, that moment has started. Especially like right from, TikTok US going back to US is, I think, one step towards that. That's more localizing, right? Then like in most of Europe, right, your customer data cannot be used, and there are a lot of laws, right, how they can use, how they can advertise, what they can do. So now they have taken one step ahead of at least empowering the people on how a platform is using the data, right? Now the next time I think they would do, and I think I imagine that would come from France or Germany or somewhere from Europe, is they would come and say that if you say you are a platform, right, then bring this change that, and they can move, people can move from one platform to other, and then you give this. Otherwise, you are a media company and you are responsible for the content, right? And that I think will be the catch.
Yeah.
Right. So we will move towards that. It's only matter of time, because as these companies become more and more powerful, where they try to monopolize the world, right? And the beauty of democracy is this, however powerful anybody thinks, right? The moment they start threatening the very existence of democratic values, right, they will be brought down. I'm a very big believer of that.
That's very interesting insight.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So I think this question to both of you. Both of you guys have experience, the experience of exiting from a company you both founded, right? So I'm really curious. How does it feel? How does it feel to sell something that you have built and to move on? And how do you move on? I mean, like, you have an exit, so you already think of, okay, this is the thing that I will be moving on, even before an exit, or after an exit you take your own time, you take a sabbatical and then think of, okay, this is the new industry that I want to go in. So please tell me about
I think you should take this question, Bhupendra. Yeah, I think.
how does it
Okay.
feel to
Yeah,
have an
let
exit?
him answer first. I'll go next.
So I have a very, very radical view on that. Okay, so I'll tell you this. See, building a company is building a relationship, right? It's a fundamental of who you are and your human nature, right? You build relationship at multiple levels, in your employees, first your partners, then employees, then investors, then your customers, vendors, everything, right? You build that relationship, right? So moving from selling that company is not only selling that company, you are selling the entire relationships, which is very hard, right? At a human level, it was very hard for me. More than financial, this was one of the biggest thing. The day that when I left Simplify 360, right, or when we sold Market Intelligent, suddenly next day, somebody else owns it, right? And then when I left Simplify, it is like, now when I go and meet somebody, right, I'm already the co-founder and ex-CEO of Simplify, right? How do I introduce myself? So it goes through a lot of things, because you have lived a certain life. And I think that is a very, very big void. And usually that comes with a notion that, in today's world, right, you build something, you sell it, you celebrate that as a success, right? And uh, and then it tries to compensate it in forms of emotional and in terms of other relationship that you for so long did not take care. Like, you didn't give enough time to your wife, your kids, your parents. They needed some care, you were not there, right? There is a cost to entrepreneurship in terms of the time and values that you have as a family, right? So you have to be, you are happy that now you can go back to those commitments more deeper, right? So there are multiple angles to it, right? And especially when I left Simplify, I had no idea what I am going to do next, because I did not plan my exit. I would do something else, and something else is better, and then I go, right? So I read somewhere, some in obviously in Instagram, somebody said, taking an exit, right, uh, is like, going through a divorce or breaking up with your girlfriend, right? You're going entirely changing your ecosystem post whatever you do, right? And there are a lot of things that I learned from Simplify 360 exit is we get too emotional on the first time, right? Market and Simplify, I was more emotional because they were all my friends, ran for longer time, right? But then after that, I think I started to grow on that notion, feeling that, the world is bigger, right? I'm doing this. Me as Bhupendra Khanal is different from, me as CEO of Khanal Foods. There can be somebody in that chair, and then he would be called CEO from next time, right? And I have my journey and my commitment in life that I will be continuing, right? It can be within the company, I can change role, or I can come out, right? So those are some of the aspects that we have to deeply go through. And The earlier that we start understanding the larger goals of life, right? Especially after starting Doxy, right? During actually discovery of building Doxy, Sneh and I, we went through a lot of soul searching, and I went to the hills. I started doing a lot of that, and during that time, I started to learning much more that Simra 360 was not everything that I was as a person, right? It's much more. I always loved to be in the hills, right? I wanted to give back to the society. Now we are giving indirect employment to more than 25,000 people in the hills that they wouldn't have otherwise, right? So it gives me much larger satisfaction, right? So I think as entrepreneurs we grow with those moments. Now I'm absolutely happy and content, and in case like I change my role within the company and then increase the other products or lines or do something else, I wouldn't go through those thing again.
Yeah. No, I think Bhupendra, you gave a very deeply reflective answer, and I
You
think
made me feel like an exit is a road to spirituality.
yeah, almost like you mature so much when you go through an experience like that. So it's really a life-defining experience. So I absolutely agree with what you said. In fact, it's a mixed feeling. And one more point you made, which I relate to, is that the company that you are part of becomes an identity. So when you exit, you don't know who you are. You have to go through like it's a sense of emptiness and a sense of loss as well as to okay, who am I now? And it takes some time to then find a new purpose and build a new identity. And I think he explained so beautifully. I completely agree with you. In fact, I was very intently listening to what you were saying because you hit the nail on its head. Yeah.
So in your context, what happened after your exit? Were you already clear about that this is the next thing I would do?
So no, I think that's when I took some time off. I went to Harvard, became a fellow because it was also you need some time to recharge. Just as he went to the hills, I said let's go back to academia. And of course, you have financially you're taken care of, so money is not a problem. The problem then becomes what next, and that question comes to you because I've also noticed that people who found companies or people who are in this kind of senior leadership roles, they also cannot remain quiet for a very long time. They need to do something, right? There's an internal desire to create something, build something, do something next, right? So they just cannot say that, hey, I have enough money and I can retire now and I will not do anything. Most people want to say that they will do this, but none of those people ever do this because after 2-3 months, you see them coming back in a new avatar.
Okay.
And that I have noticed that, you cannot not have something to work on every day, right? And I think that's also what happened to me as well, that I had to do something, right? So I think, but you do want some time to recuperate, recharge yourself, because emotionally you go through a lot of ups and downs when these things happen, and then you need some time off, and then also you want to figure out what's next. What's the next idea that you can feel equally passionate about, and that takes time. It may not come immediately. So you have to give yourself time and be very comfortable with that, right? So yeah.
One other overlapping on both of your end is you guys started from doing a job and then you figured out problems, itch, and then you started scratching that itch, and then it came out as a company, right? On my end, I've never, I didn't really work for anyone and started a company from day one. And at times I feel that, did I do a mistake? Should I have done a job somewhere, worked under a good leader, learn things from there, and then move into an entrepreneurship? And I always go back and forth with this thought. What do you guys think?
You want to go first?
So a lot of I've faced this question a couple of times at least, right? And my reflection is this, life will always give you multiple options, right? But as life goes only in one direction, you choose one of them. The best suited at that particular time you have chosen, right? So you can think 100 times, do it, but you will never be able to validate whether the other path was good
Right
or
or
bad,
wrong, yeah.
because that's the only path that you have lived in your life, and this is you, right? So for every human being who lives in this planet, right, they have only followed one path, right? So there will be a lot of analysis and data and everything to do it, and bring some general trend which may say XYZ is good, right? But for me, entrepreneurship is like swimming, right? If you are a natural swimmer, you just started swimming, you learned it, it's good. You joined the academy, you did it, it's good. Otherwise, you worked in a swimming teaching institute, and then you learn. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you swim, right? So these are different paths that we get into. But then one thing that teaches you after you work, I worked in two companies before starting, right? So one was Global Analytics, very small company. I was the 30th employee, and then it grew very fast. So I could do a lot of things in that company. I could be a rock star one day because I've solved some real problem and everybody would notice, right? But not every day that happens, but then sometimes you get that kick. And then you go to a large company where however big you do, nobody recognizes them because there are hundreds of things going on, big revenue, you're just a small part of it, right? But the beauty is, if you analyze that, you are solving a much larger problem with a lot of people, but a startup wouldn't be able to do it, right? And then while working in Fair Isaac, that is what I understood, that there are small problems, medium problems, and there are very large problems which you need resources and everything, and there is a journey how you build, right? And in that small journey of about 1 year in Fair Isaac, I learned processes. I learned there is a way that you cannot how you take to the client, how you take node, how you work with different teams to solve the problems, right? How people are hired, how they are trained in that ecosystem, right? So there are a lot of learnings that you take from there. But I've also seen a lot of friends, right, who just jump rightly, and they just learn on the way. They maybe get good books, talk to good people who know it, right? Because these are all the things currently. This knowledge is again a commodity these days, right? You just have to have an eye and mind open to go and learn, ask the right questions to right people, spend time with them, or read books, or do something, take coaching, right? So this can all be learned. So for me, I feel I can only comment on my journey.
100%.
One path I've taken, right? I wouldn't be able to say what to do or for anybody in the world. I think it has to be their own calling from inside.
What about you?
No, I think, what I would say is that, you have to get lucky as well, right? So timing plays a big role in entrepreneurship, right? You cannot will your way into doing something just because you want it that way. So if you're lucky, you get the right break, you can start something and it become immediately successful, or you can start getting success. But if not, then you need to have something else. And I think in my mind, typically, if you ask anyone, everyone will say, yeah, I want to have my own thing. I want to be the boss. I want to run my own thing. But why are they not doing it? Yeah, of course, right opportunity has not come in. And also it's a bit of a mindset as well. Are you open to taking risk? So if you ask me, taking a job is a good fallback option until you find something which really you feel passionate about and you feel like you can jump at it and take the risk, right? You have to have that willingness to take the risk. And that comes in when you feel excited about a problem that you feel like you want to dedicate it to it, right? I sometimes say that it's like falling in love, right? When the right person comes in, you have that feeling and you want to go do it. But until that happens, like, you cannot say that, hey, today is Sunday and by 5 p.m. I have to fall in love with someone. That life doesn't go that way, right? You can't time box it. So entrepreneurship is like that. You can't say that, hey, once I graduate from college, I have 1 year to do entrepreneurship. I think it will not work out that way, right? So you can't time box it like,
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, you can't say that by 5 p.m. tonight, 5 p.m. evening, I have to fall in love with someone. That's my game plan, right? Like, some people say, like, I'll give myself 1 year to do it. I'm like, no, if it has to happen, it can happen right now. If it doesn't happen, right? You may try it. No one can stop you from trying it. It's like you can court a lot of girls and you can try flirting with many people, but you can always put an effort that will maximize your chances, because you might come across someone who you really fall in love with, right? The same with this, right? So you can make yourself open and available to doing that. And I kind of feel like in today's culture and age, a lot of people are doing that. We can see that revival of this whole entrepreneurial as a career and a profession, and people feel proudly about it. So they're opening up their chances. But in my mind, they will become successful when they really commit to something, right? And commitment requires you to cut the cord with something else you are doing. And you need to, and that will happen when you find someone that you feel is the right one.
100%.
Right?
Adding on to the same question. So I was comparing the scene in Nepal and in India.
Yeah.
And obviously it is uncomparable, but then from taking just a metaphorical perspective, what I have seen in India is a lot of investors lately are entrepreneur turned investor, just like you, both of you guys. And I think in that the edge that entrepreneur to investor brings is they just don't understand. They just don't look for a P&L or a balance sheet, but they also look into the zeal of an entrepreneur, the problem they're solving. Are they passionate about it or not? Back home in Nepal, there is a new wave of entrepreneurship going on, but what is missing is the people to bet on these ideas. And most of these investors come from banking side, the financial side, which is great, right? Like we all have our specific place in an ecosystem, but I feel only if we could have the culture of investing disposable income from entrepreneurs themselves, we could encourage more of newer generation entrepreneurs. So now this is a problem statement. Now this podcast is being listened by a lot of existing Nepali entrepreneurs, diaspora people around the world. What could be done to encourage existing entrepreneurs to bet into the newer entrepreneurs? Because I think there is a gap between existing investor and the entrepreneurs who have these ideas, because the deal is not being transferred between. You know what I mean?
See, it's only about timing. See, in India also it was the same thing 15 years back, right? When I started Simplify, this was exactly the same thing, right? Most of the investors in India were most of the bankers, right? Because they manage money, right? So they manage money. They have been able to manage the debt side. Now they have been given a task that you go and manage the equity side. That was a simple move, right? In Nepal, that is the phase that we see, right?
So my question is, how do we expedite it? Of course, it's only about time, but how can we expedite it as an entrepreneur?
Yes. So I'm coming to that point. So then later what happened is, then people started getting exits, right? And then when people this new age entrepreneurs started to get exits, right? They have the money, right? Now they can really connect to whichever their certain ideas they would be liking it, and for them it's like it's a no-brainer that sometimes there is a fight among this recent exit entrepreneurs to who invest and who gets that company, right? There is in Bangalore that happens very often, right?
In fact, like now the investor make a choice who they're gonna take money from.
Yeah.
The entrepreneur makes the choice.
Entrepreneurs
make the choice, and it's very common in Bangalore, right? So that is going to come in Nepal, because we are already seeing some, a lot of IPOs that I see in Nepal, right? Every week there is an IPO. Even with the problem that we had in September, we still are having continuous IPOs, right? IPOs definitely is an amazing exit for people, right? And then there are buyouts as well, right? So I can see that the larger companies are taking bet now, like Rajendra Khetanji now invested in PhonePe, right? So those guys are now heading a lot of those established businesses are taking this. Now what happens is, with this thing, these new guys start to get money, right? And they would start investing. Now to expedite, if I have to say from the government angle, okay, they have to set up incubation centers. If I have to talk from enterprise angle, obviously they can do this incubation centers, and they can make some fund where they invest in more processed way that they can reach to a lot of entrepreneurs. And if we talk about from the entrepreneur side, right, see, there isn't much that our entrepreneur can do in this situation, right? But what they can do is, they may not be able to change the mindset or the number of people or the investors in Nepal, but what they can definitely do is keep their eyes and ears open, right? Look for opportunities for outside investors who are willing to invest in Nepal, right? Or for example, I think some of the companies like Hamro, Patro and all those guys moved their headquarters to US, right? And in India, that was the trend till 2015-16, right? Most of the Indian companies would keep their headquarters in US or Singapore, right? So that it's a better reach of capital, right? So those are the things they can do. But then it's very difficult as an entrepreneur to go and say that, oh no, I need more investors here. So it's going to be natural process. That's my view.
Okay. Let me switch a gear. I think अचानक मलाई अंग्रेजी बोल्दा बोल्दा नेपाली बोल्नु मन लाग्यो अनि एउटा इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा चाहिँ के रहेछ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ फर्मर ट्विटर हेड इन्डियाको नेपाली बोल्नुहुन्छ अनि उहाँ चाहिँ अनि मलाई कस्तो अचम्म लाग्यो कि तपाईँ स्कुलिङ हजुर नेपालीमा गर्नु हो भनेर
म 13 वर्षसम्म नेपालमा बसेको प्राइमेरी स्कुलिङ मिडल स्कुलिङ
कहाँ बस्नु नेपालमा
म नेपालमा अघि बस्थ्यो जावला खेलमा अनि पछि अलि 3-4 वर्षमा बसेको म कुपनडोलमा अनि सानेपामा मेरो स्कुल थियो
क्रेजी के
अलिअलि आउँछ धेरै राम्रो आउँदैन
सोच्दै क्रेजी के
फर्मर यु स्पिक रियली गुड
राम्रो बोल्नुहुन्छ तपाईँ
अब बिर्सिसक्यो धेरै वर्ष भयो होला
के याद छ हजुरलाई नेपालको आफू बच्चा हुँदाखेरिको कुराहरू
मलाई त धेरै माया लाग्छ त्यो मेरो घर थियो बागमती नदी नजिकै
कोरिडोरमा
अनि इट वाज भेरी नाइस आई मिन माई चाइल्डहुड वाज भेरी 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 ब्युटिफुल इट वाज नाइस पिसफुल त्यो
के
बेला
पर्टिकुलर मोमेन्ट छ जुन हजुरलाई याद आउँछ ठ्याक्क नेपाल भन्ने बित्तिकै स्कुल गएको बस चढेको
दसैँको टाइम धेरै मन पराउँछ मलाई दसैँमा अनि
अहिले पनि दसैँ मनाउँछ टिका सिका लगाउँछ
लगाउँछु अनि त्यहाँ त्यो बेलामा राजा हुनुहुन्थ्यो हामीहरू जान्थ्यो टिका लगाउनु हुन्थ्यो त्यो मलाई याद छ अनि अरू के याद छ अनि हामीहरू केसिनोमा जानुहुन्थ्यो कहिलेकाहीँ केसिनो थियो या त्यो पहिलोपटक मैले केसिनो हेरेको त्यहीँ हो किनकि नेपालमा केसिनो थियो इन्डियामा थिएन त्यो बेलामा अनि हामीहरू इन्डिया पनि आउँथ्यो तर नेपालमा केसिनो थियो अनि शनिबार हामीहरू पसना जान्थ्यो एभ्री स्याटरडे सो त्यो कुरा मलाई धेरै याद छ एन्ड इट वाज भेरी क्लोज नेट कम्युनिटी लाइक एभ्री वान न्यू एभ्री वान सो लाइफ वाज भेरी सिम्पल एन्ड सजिलो जीवन थियो सबैजना एक सम्मानसँग बस्थ्यो अनि इट वाज लाइक अ ड्रिम कम ट्रु आई मिन त्यस्तो चाइल्डहुड मैले कहीँ पनि कसैको पनि देखेको अहिलेसम्म
अनि कसरी नेपाल त हजुरको बुवा कतै काम गर्नु
मेरो बुवा त्यहाँ काम गर्नुहुन्थ्यो त्यो बेलामा त्यो बेलालाई म त्यहीँ बस्थ्यो अनि
सो एसएलसी दिनुभयो
होइन म 8सम्म त्यहीँ थियो 9th यहाँ आएको
9th यता आउनुभयो अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ फर्दर स्टडिज इन्डियामा गर्नुभयो
ग्रेजुएसन यहाँ गरेको फेरि मास्टर्स गर्न युएस गएको
अनि लाइफ कसरी चेन्ज भयो त नेपाल इन्डियादेखि नेपाल आउँदा
यहाँ आएर अलिक कम्पिटिसन बढी भयो त्यहाँ अहिले सजिलो जीवन थियो मेरो यहाँ आएर त मान्छेहरू धेरै पढ्छ यहाँ मान्छेहरूले धेरै कम्पिटिसन धेरै थियो अनि त्यो कम्पिटिसन भएर अब चेन्ज भयो तर मेरो त्यो सामान्य साधारण जीवन नेपालको मलाई धेरै मन पराउँथ्यो तर पनि म गइरहेको छु एभ्री 2 years आई गो अहिले म 2024मा गएको थियो पोखरा गएको थियो अहिले पोखरा गएर बसेको करिब 2-3 हप्ता त्यसको अघि 2022मा गएको मैले एभरेस्ट बेस क्याम्प गरेको अनि काठमाडौँ पनि जान्छु म धेरैजना म चिन्छु त्यहाँ मान्छेहरूलाई
मलाई के है दाइ के अरे यो पडकास्ट गरिसकेपछि होइन यति नेपाल बाहिर बस्ने यति खतरा मान्छेहरू कनेक्ट भयो कि होइन अब चाहिँ मलाई एउटा पर्सनल इच्छा चाहिँ के छ भन्दाखेरि कसरी होला मनिष दाइ जस्तोलाई या हजुरलाई नै भनौँ त हजुर अब नेपाल त यति धेरै महिनामा 1-2 चोटि त नेपाल पुगेकै हुनुहुन्छ होइन कसरी होला कि मनिष दाइलाई चाहिँ नेपालको अन्टरप्रेनर्स कम्युनिटीसँग कनेक्ट गर्ने नेपालको इन्भेस्टर कम्युनिटीसँग कनेक्ट गर्ने बिकज उहाँले लिएर आउने इन्साइट र जुन एउटा आत्मीयता छ नि नेपालप्रति त्यो त अब कहीँ जाने भएन नि त बचपन नै कनेक्टेड भइसकेपछि त इट इज देयर फर द रेस्ट अफ हिज लाइफ सो कसरी गर्ने होला मतलब हुन्छ नि कसरी लैजाने त अब
यसमा 2-3वटा कुरा छ एउटा त कस्तो भने अब मनिष दाइ जस्तो मान्छेहरू हुनुभयो जो चाहिँ अलरेडी कनेक्टेड नेपालसँग हुनुहुन्छ होइन एन्ड देयर आर अदर पिपल who accidentally visit for some work and they fall in love. I know a lot of friends in Hyderabad and Bangalore, right? And जब उहाँहरू एकचोटि जानुभयो उहाँहरूलाई यति मन पर्यो कि उहाँहरू अहिले एभ्री क्वार्टर पुग्नुहुन्छ क्या समटाइम सम अफ माई फ्रेन्ड्स अहिले चाहिँ उहाँहरू के भन्नुहुन्छ भने भुपी कब नेक्स्ट टाइम जा रहे हो काठमाडौँ चल्ते भनेर चाहिँ दे आस्क मी के रादर देन मैले उहाँहरूलाई सोधेर चाहिँ जाउँ भन्नुभन्दा पनि अनि त्यस्तो मैले देखेँ अनि मैले यो बिचमा चाहिँ लास्ट 1 वर्ष चाहिँ के पनि गरेँ भने कन्सियसली पनि मेरो साथीहरू फ्रम लाइक इन्भेस्टर सर्कल्स इन्टरप्रेनर सर्कल्स एन्ड प्रोफेसनल्स अदर पिपललाई चाहिँ म जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ जान्छस् भनेर सोध्ने लिएर जाने होइन 1-2जनालाई लो जाउँ भन्ने त्यो लाइक गरिरहेको छु होइन अनि द्याट इज वान पार्ट द्याट चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ लाग्छ कि एज एन इन्टरप्रेनर हु इज बिजी बिल्डिङ हिज ओन कम्पनी क्यान एड टु दिस एफोर्ट द्याट विच यु आर टकिङ राइट तर त्यसमा चाहिँ अब धेरैवटा कुराहरू छ यसलाई चाहिँ अब एकदम संस्थागत तरिकाले लाने हो भने चाहिँ एउटा त हामीले कतिवटा पोलिसिजहरू पनि चेन्ज गर्नु पऱ्यो जुन लास्ट पडकास्टमा हामीले कुरा गऱ्यौँ होइन जस्तो छुर्पी एज एन इन्डस्ट्री नै छ अब त्यो मिल्क इन्डस्ट्री हो अनि त्यसमा कुनै कम्पनीले ट्रेडिङ गर्न सक्छ अरूबाट किनेर तर ट्रेडिङ र एग्रिकल्चर दुइटैमा हाम्रो एफडिआई छैन पाइँदैन होइन इट्स नेगेटिभ लिस्ट अब एउटा त पोलिसीमै चेन्जेसहरू गर्नु पऱ्यो होइन अर्को चाहिँ हामीले एस्पायर यति ठुलो गरौँ होइन एउटा चाहिँ मलाई के लाग्छ भन्दाखेरि लार्जर बिजनेस पिपल द भेरी एक्टिभ पोलिटिसियन्स अफ नेपाल एन्ड द गुड मिडिया पर्सनालिटी ओल्ड एज एन्ड न्यू एज लाइक यु राइट फ्रम कान्तिपुर टु डुवर्स यु गाइज हेभ टु एस्पायर कि ठुलो कन्फरेन्स होल्ड गरौँ होइन म्यासिभली मान्छेलाई लिएर आउँ होइन अब बेङ्गलोरको मान्छेको लागि चाहिँ चण्डीगढमा एउटा कन्फरेन्स हुँदैछ र त्यहाँ जानु र काठमाडौँमा जानु इज द सेम थिङ होइन अब हामीलाई त साँच्चै भन्यो भने कोलम्बो नजिक हो होइन फ्रम चण्डीगढ राइट अब यो बोर्डर्सले नि आजकलको मान्छेहरूलाई त्यति फरक पर्दैन जस्तो मनिष दाइलाई पर्दैन त्यो त अब हामीले थाहा पाइसक्यौँ होइन अब मनिष दाइहरू जस्तै धेरै मान्छे जसलाई यो बोर्डरले त्यति फरक पर्दैन तर राम्रो अपर्च्युनिटी र राम्रो त्यो इकोसिस्टम चाहिँ बनाउनु पऱ्यो क्या हामीले त्यसको लागि त्यही हो, हामीले अब इन्टरनेसनल यो कन्फरेन्सेस गर्नु पऱ्यो होइन, ठुल्ठुलो फेसिलिटिजहरू बन्नु पऱ्यो। अब अहिले पनि हेर्ने भने जुन लेभल अफ कन्फरेन्स बनाउने फेसिलिटी सिङ्गापुरमा छ अथवा बर्मिङम युकेमा छ अथवा अर्ल्यान्डो इन युएसमा छ होइन, त्यस्तो इन्डियामै छैन होइन। बट इन्डिया इज कमिङ भेरी फास्ट। आई थिङ्क विथिन नेक्स्ट 2 to 3 years वी विल नो समबडी हेज अलरेडी बिन स्टार्टेड एन्ड दिस इट हेज कम राइट। अब त्यस्तै चाहिँ हाम्रो नेपालमा पनि सुरु हुनु पऱ्यो, मेबी भइसकेको छ, त्यो पनि मलाई थाहा छैन होइन, बिकज अब जबसम्म मिडियामा आउँदैन हामी त थाहा पाइँदैन। यो सबै चाहिँ एउटा प्रोसेस हो। अनि एउटा त इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा मैले के पनि भेटेको थिएँ भने एउटा कम्पनी रहेछ क्या सिङ्गापुरमा, मैले उहाँलाई 2-3 जना हाम्रो पोलिटिसियनहरूसँग कनेक्ट पनि गराइदिएको थिएँ, जसलाई चाहिँ मैले चिनेको थिएँ। उनीहरूको चाहिँ कन्सल्टिङ कम्पनी कस्तो रहेछ भने हाउ डु वी कुनै पनि गभर्मेन्ट वान्ट टु डेभलप लाइक सिङ्गापुर, they provide consulting on what did Singapore do in their journey of 50 years to become what Singapore is today, right? And what steps can they take? And they are also connecting the governments to the global investor community. There's the companies are world. So we can explore a lot of things.
हजुरले त अब इन्भेस्टमेन्ट गरेर नै राख्नुभएको छ होइन, जस्तै यो पडकास्ट अब हाम्रो नेपाली अडियन्समा जान्छ, त्यस्तो केही आइडियाजहरू आयो भने हजुरलाई आर यु अल्सो ओपन टु इन्भेस्टिङ अन Nepali startup, Nepali companies?
We are open to any kind of an entrepreneur, right? I mean, ultimately what we look for is do they have a great idea and do they have a moat? So those entrepreneurs can come from Nepal as well. In fact, I feel that there's a lot of talent, raw talent in countries like Nepal. What is needed is the right kind of exposure and sort of getting them to, because they do so exceedingly well in the US. I mean, I live in the US half my time and I find that they're also very entrepreneurial. It's a question about उहाँलाई कसरी अपर्च्युनिटिज दिनु पर्यो अनि उहाँको अलि जस्तो भन्नुभयो भूपेन्द्र दाइले कि हाउ डु यु ओपन देयर माइन्ड एन्ड मेक देम थिङ्क बिग, राइट? आई मिन इफ दे आर कट अप इन स्मल थिङ्स दे विल थिङ्क स्मल. सो समहाउ यो माइन्ड सेट अलि चेन्ज गर्नु पर्यो. एन्ड आइम श्योर as things will improve, I think we'll see unicorns and IPOs coming from entrepreneurs from Nepal. I'm really hoping for that as well.
So just जसले पनि हेरिराख्नु भएको छ दामी आइडिया छ, मनिष दाइलाई डीएम गर्नु होला, आफ्नो पिच डिक्लेयर गरेर यु नेभर नो.
म काठमाडौँ आइहाल्छु, मलाई बोलाइहाल्नुस्, काठमाडौँ आउँछु, एउटा कन्फरेन्स गरिहाल्ने हामी ठुलो.
सो लार्जर बिजनेस कम्युनिटीलाई मेबी मनिष दाइलाई नेपाल लिएर आउने एउटा नाइस अपर्च्युनिटी हुन सक्छ हैन.
यहाँबाट डाइरेक्ट फ्लाइट हो के?
डाइरेक्ट फ्लाइट हो.
नेपाल एयरलाइन्सको डाइरेक्ट फ्लाइट छ.
नेपाल एयरलाइन्सको डाइरेक्ट फ्लाइट हो. 3 घण्टा पुगिहाल्छ. त्यही त. You made a very good point. Going to Chandigarh is actually longer. Like going to Delhi or Chandigarh, like the same. If you go to Delhi, 2.5 hours. Same time you can go to Kathmandu as well from Bangalore.
एउटा के भाइरल हो नि, कहाँ के अरे दिल्लीमा चाहिँ गर्मी से हो गए बेहाल, चलो भाइ नेपाल भनेर. इन्ट्रेस्टिङ. तर मलाई पनि एकदमै यो यहाँ बेङ्गलोर आएको 1 हप्ता जति भयो होइन, अनि इन्ट्रेस्टिङ लागिरहेको छ. अनि थ्याङ्क्स टु भूपेन्द्र दाइ यस्तो नेटवर्कसँग एक्सेस गराउनु भएको छ कि 3 घण्टाको फ्लाइटमा यस्तो नेटवर्कको एक्सेस हुन्छ भने त म त मोर अफ्टन आउनु पर्दो रहेछ भन्ने एङ्गलबाट चाहिँ त्यो अब एउटा कम्प्लिटली डिफ्रेन्ट संसार खुले जस्तो के होइन.
म त नि मनिष दाइ एउटा कीवर्ड मेसेजिङ चाहिँ म दिन खोजिरहेको छु भने अनुपको च्यानलबाट, एन्ड देन अनुपलाई आफै बोलाएर होइन. मेरो चाहिँ कस्तो छ भन्दाखेरि मान्छेले हामी नेपालमा बसेर के अमेरिका, युके, अस्ट्रेलिया भनेर बस्छौँ, भिजा पाउँदैनौँ, मेहनत यति गरिरहेको हुन्छौँ होइन. अनि स्ट्रगल गर्नुभन्दा विदाउट एनी भिजा यु टेक यर पासपोर्ट है. अब तपाईँ दिल्ली, मुम्बई, बेङ्गलोर गयो भने आई थिङ्क बेङ्गलोर इज इक्विभलेन्ट टु एनी अफ द लार्ज सिटिज अफ द वर्ल्ड, राइट?
That's true. Yeah.
अब त्यसमा चाहिँ यो ओपननेस हुनु पर्यो क्या. म त चाहन्छु कि तपाईँ जस्तै अब मान्छे धेरै आउनु होइन.
म लगाइदिन्छु नि दाइ कन्टेन्ट
हो. अनि त्यो पनि हो. अनि अर्को पनि भन्छु म, आजकल त सबै कुरा इन्टरनेटबाट हुन्छ हो कि. राम्रो इन्टरनेट पायो भने त मान्छे नेपालमा बसेर पनि राम्रो ठुलो कम्पनी चलाउन सक्छ हो कि. त्यो माइन्डसेट चाहियो.
माइन्डसेट चाहिँ ट्राभल
कन्फिडेन्स चाहियो कि म गर्न सक्छु. त्यस्तो कन्फिडेन्स हुनु पर्यो कि म गर्छु.
अनि त्यो माइन्डसेट र कन्फिडेन्स चाहिँ आफ्नो आँखाले केही देखिसकेपछि, डाइरेक्ट भेटिसकेपछि, कुरा गरिसकेपछि चाहिँ झन् बढ्दो रहेछ कि हुन्छ नि. किनभने किताबले भन्दा पनि ट्राभलले नै हो नि त.
अलिक त ट्राभल गर्नु पर्यो, हेर्नु पर्यो. अनि त्यो सिकेर फेरि आफ्नो ठाउँमा जहाँ वेरेभर यु आर कम्फर्टेबल त्यहाँ गएर, किनकि टेक्नोलोजी बिजनेस चाहिँ रन्स अन इन्टरनेट. इफ यु हेभ गुड कनेक्सन तपाईँ जहाँ पनि बसेर कहीँको पनि काम गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ। यहाँ त बेङ्गलोरमा मान्छेहरू यस्तो ट्राफिक हुन्छ, घरमा बसेर नै जुम कल गर्छ, त्यो मान्छे त्यहाँ बस्छ, म यहाँ बस्छु, तर किन जाने, त्यस्तो हुन्छ यहाँ त कहिलेकाहीँ त।
अस्ति हेमन्त दाइ र लक्ष्मी दाइको
एउटै शहरमा बसेर पनि दुवैजना भेटिँदैन, अनि राति पार्टीमा भेटिन्छ फेरि।
अनि भूपेन्द्र दाइले भनेको कुरामा चाहिँ डबल डाउन गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अहिले कस्तो पनि छ भन्दाखेरि नेपालमा चाहिँ युथमा चाहिँ एउटा फोमो छ कि नेपालमा बसेर केही हुँदैन, विदेश जानुपर्छ। विदेश भनेको चाहिँ अमेरिका, अस्ट्रेलिया, युके, क्यानाडा नै हो, किन भन्दा के ठुलो गर्नको लागि चाहिँ त्यहीँ जानुपर्छ भन्ने छ। तर आई थिङ्क त्यस्तो सोच छ भने चाहिँ होइन, मेबी के गरे हुन्छ होला भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ अमेरिकै अस्ट्रेलिया जान मन छ भने +2 पछि या ब्याचलर पछि बरु 3 महिना इन्डिया आएर बस, हेर एक्सपोजर गर।
अब त यस्तो भिजा यस्तो गाह्रो भयो नि युएसको। अब दुईवटा प्रब्लम भयो, एउटा भिजा पाउन कस्तो गाह्रो भयो युएसमा, अर्को त्यो भयो कि त्यो H1B र OPT त्यो पनि अब सकियो। अघि त के हुन्थ्यो कि यु गो टु द युएस, यु इनरोल इन अ कलेज, अनि तपाईँ ग्रेजुएसन भएपछि तपाईँलाई आफ्नै काम गर्नलाई भिजा पाइन्छ अनि त्यहीँ बस्नुहुन्छ, अनि त्यो देन भिजा कन्भर्ट्स इन्टु ग्रिन कार्ड एन्ड द्याट टुक टु सिटिजनसिप। द्याट पाथ वाज क्लियरली लेड आउट, राइट? अब इन द करेन्ट रेजिम विथ ट्रम्प कमिङ इन त्यो सबै चेन्ज भयो। सो मैले हेरेको छु, मैले धेरै साथीहरू छ त्यो उनीहरूको छोराछोरी त्यहाँ गयो, अब जब पनि पाइँदैन, फिर्ता आउनु पर्यो, अनि इन्भाइरोमेन्ट पनि अलि अनफ्रेन्डली जस्तो भयो। अब त त्यसले गर्दा आफ्नो होम कन्ट्रीमा बसेर तपाईँलाई जहाँ स्ट्रेन्थ छ त्यहाँ बसेर आफ्नो काम गर्नलाई सबैभन्दा राम्रो त्यही हो। अलि एक्सपोजर ल्याउनको चाहियो अलिकति, त्यसको लागि ट्राभल गर्नुहोस्, भेटेर आउनुहोस्, तर आफ्नो घरमा गएर आफ्नो देशमा गएर काम गर्नलाई बेस्ट।
अनि होपफुली यस्तो कन्भर्सेसनले ओपननेस गरिदिन्छ कि यदि मैले एक्स ट्विटरको हेड इन्डियामा भेट्छु भने म इन्डिया गएर भेट्छु नि त, किन अमेरिका जानु पर्यो?
त्यही त। अनि म पनि अमेरिका धेरै वर्ष बसेर फेरि म यहीँ किन आएको, किनकि यहाँ यु क्यान क्रिएट मोर इम्प्याक्ट, राइट? लाइक ही सेड ना that you will be a cog in the wheel in a large company, similarly in a large country also. No matter how much innovation you do, you won't be able to touch people the same way that you can touch in your home country, because you will be able to make more impact with whatever you have, right? And you will feel more gratified, and you will also be respected a lot more as compared to a foreign country where you have to work every day just to justify your existence. Here your existence is taken for granted. You don't have to work towards existence. You can only focus on impact, and a small thing you do, you can create so much impact, and it's very gratifying. So अमेरिकामा पोसिबल हुँदैन।
तर डाइकोटोमी चाहिँ रहेछ कि दाइ, जस्तो एउटा एंगलबाट चाहिँ इम्प्याक्टको कुरा भयो, एउटा अर्को एंगलबाट चाहिँ रेभेन्यूको कुरा भयो कि। सो त्यसलाई चाहिँ एउटा
रेभेन्यू तपाईँ अमेरिकाबाट रेभेन्यू ल्याउनुस् नि, इन्टरनेटमा त रेभेन्यू कहीँ पनि रेभेन्यू त
ओके।
घरमा नेपालमा बस्नुस्, इन्टरनेट बिजनेस चलाउनुस्, सेल तपाईँको दुनियाँभरिमा हुन्छ नि त, पैसा त्यहाँबाट डलर यहाँ हुन्छ नि त, किन आउँदैन? त्यही त। अनलाइन स्ट्राइप लगाउनुहोस्, पैसा कहीँबाट पनि आउँछ, तपाईँलाई कहीँ जानु नै पर्दैन, आफ्नो घरमा बस्नुहोस्, हो किन? Have a global vision, but you don't have to physically travel. That's what I'm saying. You can travel for pleasure, you can travel for knowledge, but to travel for livelihood, that is not a compulsion these days. That's what I'm saying, right? Revenues, go for global market. Don't be small and think only about Nepal revenues or India revenues, right? Think global revenues. Everyone is your customer in the world.
Actually यो कुरा चाहिँ म र स्नेहमा एकदम डाइरेक्टली एप्लाई भएको छ कि दाइले भन्नुभएको कुरा। सो स्नेह र मैले चाहिँ सिङ्गापुर पनि युएस पनि वी थट अफ मुभिङ टु दोज कन्ट्रिज के टु बी अ ग्लोबल एन्टरप्रेनर भनेर होइन। बट देन आफ्टर स्टेइङ फर कपाल अफ मन्थ्स वी रियलाइज द्याट त्यो चाहिँ नट अ गुड आइडिया हो, बिकज बेङ्गलोर प्रोभाइड्स एभ्रिथिङ द्याट आई वुड गेट इन न्युयोर्क, राइट? इन द सेम टाइम यदि म न्युयोर्कमा भए पनि वासिङटन डिसीको कस्टमरसँग एउटा चाहिँ सेल्स कल गर्ने हो भने अथवा भेट्ने हो भने देयर इज भेरी हाई चान्सेस कि म एउटा इमेल लेखौँ अनि एउटा जुम कल गर्छु रादर देन गोइङ टु वासिङटन डिसी एन्ड मिट। तिनीहरू पनि आफ्नो काममा बिजी हुन्छ, म पनि आफ्नो काममा बिजी हुन्छु होइन। अनि देयर इज ट्राफिक, देयर इज सो मच अफ ट्राभल कस्ट। द इजियर थिङ त अहिले त सजिलो भएको छ नि त कनेक्ट गर्न इन्टरनेटबाट होइन। अनि द्याट इज वाट वी रियलाइज कि बेङ्गलोरमा त अमेजिङ अपर्च्युनिटी छ है। इफ यु वान अ डिसेन्ट लिभिङ यु क्यान रेन्ट अ भेरी बिग हाउस, राइट? एन्ड इफ यु एक्चुली वान्ट सम हेल्प, लाइक यु हेभ अ किड एन्ड यु वान्ट टु हेल्प, यु गेट द्याट, राइट? युएसमा त्यो पोसिबल छैन होइन। अनि एक्सेस वाइज मसँग सबै त्यो एक्सेस छ जुन चाहिँ जसले चाहिँ वासिङटन डिसी अथवा सिएटलमा बसेर चाहिँ गरिरहेको छ होइन। सालमा 2 चोटि 3 चोटि गएर फिजिकल्ली एकदमै इम्पोर्टेन्ट कस्टमरलाई भेट्यो भने इट्स भइहाल्यो, right? So that if we change that place from Bangalore to Kathmandu, it's the same thing.
अनि हामीले अरू त्यो फर्स्ट पडकास्टमा भने जस्तै अब त्यसको लागि इकोसिस्टम बनाउन थाल्नु पर्यो।
यस, अलिकति इकोसिस्टम चाहिँ हुनु पर्यो होइन। बेङ्गलोरले अलिकति त्यो बेसी त दिन्छ नि। अब इन्डियामै पनि बेङ्गलोर इज द बेस्ट सिटी हैन मेबी हैदराबाद बेंगलोर आर द बेस्ट सिटीज
So, नेपालमा बसेको मान्छेलाई नेपाल नसोचेर ग्लोबल सोच्नु पर्यो अनि नेपाल चाहिँ होम कन्ट्री भएर तपाईँको कम्फर्ट छ त्यहाँ तर इम्प्याक्ट यु क्यान क्रिएट एनीवेयर राइट आई मिन एज यु राइटली सेड your revenues can come from anywhere. And if you want to visit someone for relationship building, you can attend a conference, you can visit them once in a quarter, but you don't have to relocate and lock, stock and barrel with your family and put yourself into a different environment where quality of life is actually worse in those countries. Like, America and India kin aako. Once I had my daughter, I realized that, you know, even if you make a lot of money there, you cannot live like the way you can live in our countries, right? You cannot have the same convenience. You cannot have the same support system. And you also feel emotionally sort of not that fulfilled as you can feel fulfilled here. So as an entrepreneur and someone who has to run a marathon, you also want to be emotionally fulfilled because you need that internal energy because you have to radiate energy to your team. If you yourself are empty internally, and that energy comes from being around people that like you, love you, connect with you, care for you, and you need that ecosystem also of people who are your people, right? So it's very important to find that ecosystem that nurtures you so that you can radiate the energy to the world and capture the world.
हामी अलमोस्ट लास्टतिर आएको छौँ पडकास्टको होइन अनि एउटा एकदम ओपन एन्डेड क्वेसन रेज गर्छु नि त होइन यदि मनिष दाइले यो भूपेन्द्र दाइले चाहिँ आफ्नो 25 वर्षको सेल्फलाई के एडभाइस दिन थियो भने with everything that we have done so far with the world that we have seen
maybe you take Bhupendra
मनिष दाइको त बाटो हुन्छ
सोच्नु पर्यो यसलाई त अब
सो
भन्छ के दिनुहुन्थ्यो होला
25 वर्ष हुँदाखेरि लाइक I was actually in the process of setting up the first company. Okay, so for me, like म चाहिँ कस्तो थियो भने नि सानोमा जे अपर्च्युनिटी आयो अब जे आयो गरिहाल्यो आज फुटबल खेल्ने भने फुटबल खेलिहाल्यो कसैले ल यो खेलौँ भने त खेल्ने सबै स्पोर्ट्समा उ गर्ने होइन अनि अब पढ्नु पनि ठिकै ठिकै थिएँ होइन आई वाज नट द टपर बट एमङ द गुड स्टुडेन्ट्स अनि मलाई त्यो कस्तो थियो भने यो लाइफमा म यस्तो गर्छु उस्तो गर्छु ठुलो बन्छु यस्तो भन्ने थट्सहरू चाहिँ ममा केही पनि थिएन होइन बट देयर आर भेरी स्ट्रङ फिलिङ वाट आई लाइक एन्ड वाट आई डिन्ट लाइक होइन जस्तो स्पोर्ट्स आई लाइक इट होइन रनिङ अ बिजनेस युज टु लाइक बी माई थिङ किनभने मेरो हाम्रो चाहिँ जो दोकान थियो त्यो दोकानमा चाहिँ म स्कुल जानुभन्दा अगाडि बसेर जान्थेँ अनि स्कुलबाट आएर त्यो दोकानै बस्थेँ टिल द्याट क्लोजेस क्या उर्लाबारीमा अनि स्याटरडे सन्डे चाहिँ म दोकानमै गएर बस्थेँ होइन ऊ के अरे दबाईको दोकान थियो अनि हजुर फार्मेसी थियो अनि डक्टर्सहरू आउने हाम्रोमा होइन उहाँहरू हेर्ने म चाहिँ उहाँहरूसँग रिलेसन बनाउँथेँ होइन त्यसपछि म चाहिँ जहिले सोचिरहेको थिएँ कि अब यो डिस्ट्रिब्युटर आउँछ होइन अब यसलाई अलिकति मार्जिन कसरी बढाउने होइन यसले 16%मा लक गरे हुन्थ्यो तर चाहिँ लाइक अब धेरै किन्यो भने अलिकति एक्स्ट्रा 5+1 20%1 भन्ने त्यस्तो कुराहरूमा चाहिँ म एकदम पोक गरेर बस्ने होइन अनि यस्तो यस्तो कुराहरू चाहिँ मलाई इन्ट्रेस्ट लागिरहेको थियो क्या अनि मलाई अब अनि मैले अर्को चाहिँ एउटा के पनि देखेको थिएँ भने बुवा पहिले जबमा हुँदा र बुवा जब दोकान खोलेपछि हाम्रो लाइफस्टाइल सिग्निफिकेन्टली चेन्ज भयो त्यही भएर मलाई चाहिँ लाग्यो कि जबभन्दा चाहिँ यता जाँदा चाहिँ धेरै राम्रो हुन्छ भन्ने खालको फिलिङ मेरो होइन तर बुवाको चाहिँ अब त्यो होल कन्ट्री नै त्यस्तो थियो पहिले होइन कन्ट्री भन्दा नि एन्टायर साउथ एसिया नै त्यस्तो थियो कि राम्रो पढेर इन्जिनियरिङ मेडिकल गर्ने अनि त्यहाँदेखि राम्रो ठाउँमा जब गर्ने वाज एभ्रीबडी एस्पायर्ड सो बुवाले चाहिँ मलाई जब गर्नमा एन्करेज कहिले गर्नु भएन होइन बट आई गट एन्करेज लुकिङ एट हिम यु वुड वेक अप एभ्री डे 4 बजी उठेर योगा गरेर रेडी भएर 6:30 बजी दोकान खोल्न पुग्ने होइन म 6 बजी गरेर चाहिँ सटर खोलिदिने अनि त्यो गर्दाखेरि कस्तो भयो भने जुन चाहिँ अपर्च्युनिटी आउँछ त्यो हेर्दै गयो होइन अनि गर्दा गर्दै फेरेजकमा काम गर्दाखेरि सिटी ब्याङ्क हेड अफ एनालिटिक्स अनु नै जो हामी विल बी टकिङ टु हिम लेटर राइट अब उहाँले मलाई इमेल गर्नुभयो कि आइएम गोइङ टु स्टार्ट अ कम्पनी यु बी माई पार्टनर भन्दाखेरि इट इन्ट्रिक्ड मी त्यो भित्र बसेको टक्क भयो त्यही भएर मैले चाहिँ खासै लाइफ त्यसरी प्लान गरेर गइरहेको थिइनँ कि म अब इन्टरप्रेनर हुन्छु म यस्तो हुन्छु भनेर तर बेस्ट अपर्च्युनिटी एट द्याट पोइन्ट अफ टाइम चाहिँ लिइरहेको थिएँ सो आई टेक्निकली डोन्ट ह्याभ एन एडभाइस फर अ 25 year old आई वुड स्टिल फिल कि द्याट इज द बेस्ट वे राइट तर इफ आई स्लाइटली टेक इट अलिकति अगाडि लिएर जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ म जब सिम्प्लिफाई 360मा थिएँ नि सिम्प्लिफाई 360लाई बिल्ड गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ होइन मैले त्यसलाई अलिकति अलग तरिकाले गर्थेँ जस्तो लाग्छ क्या मैले त्यसलाई अलिकति कस्तो भने अब मैले त एफएमसिजी कम्पनी चलाएँ मैले त कस्टमरको बारेमा जाने नि त सो म अलिकति कस्टमर फ्रेन्डली बनाउने, युआई र इन्ट्रेक्सनलाई अलिकति बेसी फोकस गर्ने होइन, कन्ज्युमरलाई धेरै फोकस गर्ने रादर देन टेक्नोलोजी, किन हामीले वर्ल्डको बेस्ट टेक्नोलोजी पनि बनाएको हो त्यतिखेर होइन। तर त्यो टप लेभल ऊ चाहिँ हाम्रो त्यो पुगेन त्यहाँ होइन, त्यही भएर हामी त्यो लेभलमा पुग्न सकेन जुन चाहिँ लेभलमा कुन अमेरिकन कम्पनीजहरू पुगे होइन। सो त्यहाँ चाहिँ म के त्यो 30-35 इयर्सको भूपेन्द्रलाई चाहिँ के दिन्छु भने सबैभन्दा इम्पोर्टेन्ट लाइक इन्टरप्रेनर्सको लागि चाहिँ अन्डरस्ट्यान्डिङ योर कस्टमर हो है, त्यसलाई बुझ्ने अनि त्यसको लाइफ एकदम इजी कसरी गर्ने हो त्यसमा फोकस गर्ने होइन, rather than whole company thinking about building the world's best product which may not relate to a lot of people.
I think it's a very good question, right? I mean, if I look back and reflect, see, हामीहरू सानो भएको बेलामा 25 years ago, we were not very exposed. Opportunity त्यति थिएन, हो कि न? Good college में गयो, the mindset was get a good job and settle, right? I mean, in a way that is what comes into success. And we always thought that, okay, that is the way to do it, right? But I want to give an advice that think about life as a marathon, not a sprint. And in my mind, you can do short-term things just to keep yourself active in here and now. But I think in my mind, if you have a bigger passion and, go for it, because life will provide you multiple chances. So it's not like you don't do this and you are done for that. It's not the game. It's a longer game. So the advice I would give to people who are younger right now is that there are a lot more opportunities. Go for what you feel happy doing and what you're passionate about. And even if you don't succeed in that, you'll get new opportunities as well. You don't have to think that life will come to an end, right? And I think if I was born now, of course, I would lead a very different life. But we are a function of the time when we are born and the kind of circumstances we had. No regrets about where I am, but I kind of feel like early part of my career my decisions were based on, here and now, short-term thinking. But over time, you also mature and you realize that, these things will not matter in the big game of life, right? Ultimately, when you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, those small things will not matter. So have a bigger perspective in life is what I would tell people.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I am so excited to take this conversation back home, inspire our newer generation, and then I think eventually build this community where we can have you in Nepal, and then create this thriving community.
I would love to travel to Kathmandu. Yeah, anytime.
We'll figure out a way to.
Yeah, I think give a reason and make an occasion. I'll travel. Yeah, and
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dai.
Yeah. Thank you so much. मलाई धेरै राम्रो लाग्यो. धन्यवाद.
Thank you so much, Dai.
Yeah.
And for everybody who's watching this,
Yeah.
I know that tons of takeaways. यहाँसम्म हेरिसक्नु भएको छ भने kudos to your patience, because there are tons of takeaways and हामीले भनि नै राखेको के भन्दाखेरि get inspired, become a doer, pick these smaller ideas, go execute, and then become a doer, and then you'll have a bigger perspective to grow. Please like and subscribe. That's the only way we will grow and reach to a bigger audience. We'll be back again with another amazing episode. Till then, you guys take care. Bye bye.
Good, yeah, man. You have a lot of energy. I think you